That Honda turbo engine sound, it's gone. They've killed the Civic Hatchback Turbo for this, and this is what we got instead. And before you close this video in disgust, let me show you something. That's 232 pounds of instant torque, no lag, no waiting, just immediate response. And after a week of driving this Civic Hatchback Hybrid through the city and on a snowboarding trip, it's not a question of whether they've made this Civic better, it's a question of whether they've actually made hybrids fun. What's it like? Buckle up, my friends. Let's go for a drive. I'm your host, Brian Makse, racer, lover of driving fast, fun things. And on this channel, you get reviews for drivers from drivers. Now, I've wanted to drive this Civic Hybrid as soon as it was announced, but we've recently driven the new Corolla Hybrid. And if the Civic Hybrid and the Corolla Hybrid aren't direct competitors, then I don't know what is. And before we get into what this Civic Hybrid is like to drive, let's have a look at it in a little more depth. For what it's worth, this is the first Civic Hatchback Hybrid for North America, and based on its torque output, it's the most powerful non-Type R Civic they've ever made. It seems Honda engineers approach this hybrid system the way Gordon Ramsay approaches a kitchen. Strip out everything unnecessary, keep what works, then make it better. The result? A Civic that's both more powerful and more efficient than the turbo it replaces. It's like they found the automotive equivalent of diet bacon. The 2-liter inline-4 gasoline engine makes 141 horsepower at 6,000 RPM. The electric motor makes 181 horsepower. Combined system output is 200 horsepower and 232 pounds of torque from 0 to 2,000 RPM. There's also a starter generator on board. The transmission's an electronically controlled CVT with something called linear shift control, but what it actually does is mimics gear changes. Yes, this is front-wheel drive. The diff is obviously open. There's no limited slip diff here. Steering's electrically assisted. Suspension uses McPherson struts at the front, multi-link at the rear, and the suspension calibrations are specific to this hybrid and the sport trim. 4-wheel disc brakes, of course, and there is regenerative braking, as we will discuss. Wheels and tires are 18s. Curb weight is 3,289 pounds. Apparently, static weight distribution is 62% front, 38% rear, but on this channel, we know it's not static weight distribution that counts, it's how you use it. And promised combined mileage is apparently 48 miles per gallon. Now, one thing to take note, the gasoline motor makes 141 horsepower. The electric motor makes 181 horsepower. Combined, they make 200 horsepower. Yes, these numbers don't add up, but welcome to hybrid magic.
Did you know that 80% of you are not subscribed? Yes, it's true. 80% of you are not subscribed. I checked the data. So if you like the content on this channel, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button, make sure you like this. And if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our very popular line of Save the Manuals merch. Now back to your regularly scheduled episode. Here in the driver's seat, not much has changed for 2025. Sure, there's like a little bit more tech and the hybrid related bits, but it's still this modern Civic interior that we know and love. Great seating position, nice and low to the floor, great interface to the steering wheel and to the pedals, lots of adjustment in the seat and the steering column as well, so you can get perfectly set up behind the wheel. Speaking of the wheel, just perfectly shaped and sized. It encourages you to have your hands at 9 and 3. There are some paddles on the back of the steering wheel that we will talk about later, and no, they're not shift paddles. One thing that hasn't changed that I'm not a big fan of is this seat. Even though it hasn't caused me trouble over long distances, and I've driven this a fair bit, including that big snowboarding trip with a number of people and snowboard and ski gear on board, didn't bother me at all, but I just don't like the shape of this seat. There's a decent amount of side bolsters to keep you in place when the cornering gets exciting, but yeah, just give me a little bit more lumbar support, please. Ergonomically, it's modern Honda. The tech nerds among us want to know about the Google integration. That's great. I really haven't bothered to try it. I think I've tried it on an Acura, and it works just fine. It's just not for me. I use this on wireless CarPlay, works just
great that way. Second level ergonomics are pretty straightforward, no learning curve here at all. And on top of that, the climate controls are buttons and dials. Who knew? Revolutionary concept. Also revolutionary concept. This Civic has something that the Corolla doesn't: a volume knob. And unlike some German brands where every push of a button costs you $12.99 a month, Honda believes in including all of the features in their cars. In terms of spaciousness, it's tremendously spacious here in the front row, decent amount of storage as well. There is a switchable, thankfully, wireless phone charger here, so you can turn it off in case you want to use this as storage space. Decent amount of storage in the armrest as well, some bottle holders in the door, that's great. I can fit comfortably behind myself in the seating position, and even that roof line doesn't bother me too much if I'm seated in the back. Now, as I mentioned, took this on a snowboarding trip, and no trouble loading all of our gear in here at all. There were 3 of us, lots of gear, and no trouble at all. And it was a fantastic companion for a long distance road trip. Based on this car's ability to take 3 people and all of their snowboard gear, well, I have to say that cargo carrying ability of this Civic Hatchback Hybrid is why do people even need crossovers huge. Of course, visibility is excellent because Honda does excellent fundamentals. So great visibility out the windows, even out the back window, large outboard mirrors. And of course, when you adjust your 3 mirrors properly, blind spots don't exist. There are a couple of USB-C ports up here, that's great. And in 2025, that's not exactly revolutionary. What's next? Will they discover heated seats? Nah, I'm just kidding. There are heated seats here too. Now that you've seen it from the outside, let's try it on the inside, shall we? Wow. I'm impressed. It's like they've calibrated this to know you are looking for 100% acceleration, not 99%, not 98%, but 100%. There was none of that faux shifting going on. It was just maximum power, get all of that power to the road and accelerate. This will do 0 to 60 in 6.1, 6.2, something like that, which apparently is quicker than the SI. Didn't know that, but that's no surprise because this thing has an incredible amount of torque compared to the SI. Top speed is limited to 114 miles an hour, which is more than fast enough for this part of the world, that's for sure. And what I'm really impressed with is that torque delivery. It is so impressive. Think about this for a second. 232 pounds of torque from 0 RPM. I think physics teachers could use this to teach about instant gratification. When it comes to modern hybrids, I really don't pay that much attention to electronically controlled CVTs, but this one may be the best one I've ever driven. And it's simply because Honda's engineers cared a little bit more to make that driving experience a little bit more natural. As we accelerate, this thing does those fake shifts, but it makes the driving experience feel much more intuitive, much more natural, and much more pleasing than just a CVT kind of doing its thing and playing with its infinite gear ratios. And what's more is there is an adjustable regenerative braking function, which I've come to really appreciate. Now, it is only available in a fixed kind of way in sport mode. If you do pull these paddles on the back of the steering wheel, and no, they're not shift paddles, they are to control the amount of regenerative braking. Here we're back to normal and we ask for some more engine braking. We drive along, and then after a little while, the engine braking just shuts off. But when we put it in sport mode, for example, and we ask for engine braking, well, it's on permanently until we shift out of sport drive mode or maybe put this in park. In terms of traction, this is front-wheel drive. It's got an open diff, but I don't find it very torque steery at all. However they've done this, the torque distribution seems to work, the suspension geometry seems to work, and all of that power gets to the ground without the wheel tugging at your hand when you're asking for maximum acceleration. Plus, during my week with this Civic Hybrid, it's been very snowy. Thankfully, Honda has us on some Michelin winter tires, which were very impressive in the snow. And this doesn't have a lot of ground clearance, and we were in some fairly deep snow. No trouble with this thing getting through, even with it being just front-wheel drive. As we're asking for moderate acceleration, we're just getting shifts continually, and that just makes this driving experience so much better. It's like they made the hybrid interface just disappear. There's really no evidence of it. Sure, you can dive into the power flow screen and the instrument cluster and geek out on the efficiency, but in sport mode, it all kind of fades away. This power unit is all about its hybrid torque. It just doesn't ask for permission. There's no wait for it moment, no turbo building its boost, no downshifting drama. Just press the pedal and physics and engineering. It's like Honda made a hybrid for people who like driving instead of hypermiling. For this model, Honda says they recalibrated the suspension settings for the hybrid as well as this sport trim, and I think it shows. The ride and handling is excellent. Ride is very comfortable, handling well, body and wheel motion very well controlled. I do detect the extra mass of the hybrid on board from time to time, and that's in transitions through corners, things like that. But otherwise, I don't think many people will actually pick up on that. But for me, the overall ride and handling package is excellent. Soaks up the bumps, there's no crash through. And in terms of body and wheel control, there's definitely no secondary motion. We're going to cross a railway track here. Let's see what that's like. No problem whatsoever. Just soaks up the bumps. And when the driving gets fun in the corners, well, it's all very well controlled. Turn-in response is excellent. Really have to applaud the steering here. There isn't a lot of feel or feedback that comes through the steering wheel, but like most Hondas, well, there's excellent chassis feel, and I can feel what's going on in each of the 4 contact patches. What I do find in terms of handling balance, however, it's not quite as neutral as an SI, and certainly not as neutral as a Type R. It's pretty crowd-pleasing and safely tuned to maybe exhibit a little bit of understeer if somebody's pushing a little too aggressively. Still, in the corners, as I was exploring them, after I've turned in, if the car's not turning in as crisply as I like, it still responds. Lift off that throttle, tuck the nose in a little bit, and it drives like a proper Honda should. Braking is excellent. Brake feel, fantastic. Very happy with that. I've got excellent feel, control, and modulation with this brake pedal. They've done a great job of tuning it. And here's the thing, with hybrids, that's a difficult thing to do because engineers have to blend a little bit of regenerative braking with brake actuation when the pads come in contact with the rotors. And what I really dig about this brake pedal is that you get real brake pedal feel. It's not like working with the YouTube algorithm, which can be ponderous and frustrating. What I find interesting is how this thing still handles. Yes, it weighs a little bit more than the turbo hatchback did, but what Honda's done is put the batteries low in the chassis. So through the corners, it feels less like an efficient hybrid and more like a Civic that's just been doing core workouts. And I'm really impressed with the overall suspension tuning because most manufacturers would have just stiffened everything up to deal with the additional weight of the hybrid. Like I said, Honda re-engineered all the suspension settings for this, and I think when the Dynamics engineering department got an email that said, hybrid hatchback, they said, well, it's got to dance, and it does. And overall ride and handling is more composed than I am when I try to explain understeer to my non-car friends. I read the press release,
It said that the advanced driver assist, like the adaptive cruise control and the lane keep, had been updated, and this whole system can better detect motorcycles and cyclists, maybe pedestrians. That's great. What I find is when we're on the highway, the adaptive cruise is a little bit more ponderous and less responsive than it used to be. And I think it could use a little bit more fine tuning. How do you spec yours? Well, I think this is a fairly easy question to answer. What you are looking at is a 2025 Honda Civic Sport Touring Hatchback Hybrid. This is Boost blue paint, if you can't tell, it's blue with the black leather interior. Base price for the Sport Touring in the US is $33,150 plus $455 for the paint, for a total as tested of $33,605. In Canada, base price for a Sport Touring is $39,000 plus $300 for the paint, for a total as tested of $39,300. And these prices are before freight and local taxes. Let's talk about what you're actually paying for. Base Sport Hybrid starts at under 30 US, and that's a heck of a lot more than the gas model, but you're getting 50 miles per gallon city, more torque than the SI, and enough tech to make your phone jealous. The question isn't whether it's worth it, it's why wouldn't you? And of course, when it comes to the SI, that's manual only, and that's where our hearts lie. But in terms of speccing your Civic Hatchback Hybrid, I think this is the way to go. Sport Touring is definitely the way to go. This color isn't quite for me, and if I were to buy one of these, I would definitely get it in black and keep it very simple. My verdict, well, let's get fuel consumption out of the way. And here's the deal. No matter how I drive it, I'm getting 35 miles per gallon. And for me, for somebody who enjoys using the throttle and accessing all of the power and all of the torque that this hybrid system makes, well, color me impressed. For my Canadian friends, that's about 6.8 liters per 100 kilometers. If I paid attention and if I cared, I definitely would get better mileage. But for me, 35 miles per gallon, the way I've driven this through snowstorms and all throughout the city, I'm very, very impressed. As for the Civic Hatchback Hybrid, well, it's not perfect, still has a couple of shortcomings, but this thing is very, very impressive. Honda's approach to hybrids is completely different to everyone else, and they understood something that we didn't. That instant torque, it completely transforms how this car drives. From a stop, through corners, up mountain passes, there's no waiting, no turbo lag, no CVT hunting for the right ratio, just immediate response. It's uncanny. 232 pounds of torque right now, exactly when you ask for it. More than the SI, more than the old turbo model, and Honda did something really clever here. They tuned the electric motor to fill in exactly where that turbo lag used to be. And yes, some of you will lament that they've killed the turbo, but after spending a week with this, it's pretty clear that this is much better to drive and much more efficient than the outgoing turbo model. And what I've learned is that it's not about what we lost, it's what we've gained instead. Here's what Honda accomplished with this hatchback hybrid. They took everything that's good about the Civic, the handling, the responsiveness, the everyday usability, and then added the potential to get 50 miles per gallon and instant torque. It's not meant to challenge the Type R in any way. It's certainly not meant to replace the SI, and we have a soft spot for the SI. It's something completely different. It's very, very good, and that's why it works. Thanks for hanging out with me today and having a look at this 2025 Honda Civic Hatchback Hybrid in Sport Touring trim. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, you're not new, you know what to do. Smash the subscribe button, turn on your notifications like this, and as always, sharing is caring, so please share this with your friends, especially on Reddit, because on Reddit, they really need to see reviews for drivers, from drivers. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And if you want to support the channel, please hit up our merch store. Links here, links below. Lots of great stuff for driving enthusiasts like us, including our Save the Manuals merch, and Honda still makes some fine manuals. Thanks, Honda. Anyway, thanks again for watching. We'll see you again next time. And remember, cars don't understeer by themselves, not even Honda Civic Hatchback Hybrids. And since you've hung around this long, well, have a look at my favorite modern Honda, the Type R. That was a fun episode, and it's a completely different car than this Civic Hatchback Hybrid. I think you might enjoy it. Thanks for watching. See you again next time.